Europe at a crossroads. Giorgia Meloni, Friedrich Merz, and the new battle for Europe's direction. If peace and justice are ever to be achieved, it will only be through unity, shared purpose, and determination. With that spirit, 8 European leaders gathered at the White House on August 18, 2025. The summit was meant to showcase transatlantic solidarity, but it ended with a single image that spread around the world. Giorgia Meloni's weary, exasperated look during a speech by Germany's new chancellor, Friedrich Merz. Within hours, the moment went viral, capturing a deeper tension that had been simmering beneath European politics for years: the growing divide between national sovereignty and Brussels' central authority. The rise of an unlikely pragmatist. To understand that moment, one must first understand Giorgia Meloni herself. When she won Italy's 2022 elections with her Brothers of Italy party, Europe held its breath. A politician with roots in Italy's post-fascist right had taken the political center stage. Many feared she would become a combative nationalist ready to break with Brussels. But Meloni defied expectations. Instead of becoming a disruptive force, she evolved into a pragmatic mediator. She spoke the language of national sovereignty while maintaining close ties with the European Commission. She worked with Ursula von der Leyen, supported Ukraine when Viktor Orban hesitated, and negotiated migration deals that produced tangible results. Meloni became the respectable face of a new conservative right, principled, yet responsible, or so it seemed. Dissatisfaction beneath the surface. Behind that image of cooperation, Meloni's distrust of EU power was quietly growing. She observed how Brussels wielded its authority selectively. Hungary, under Viktor Orban, became the favorite target. Billions in EU funds were frozen, Article 7 proceedings launched, and constant accusations of rule of law violations hung over Budapest. To Meloni, it was a pattern and a warning. Any government straying too far from Brussels' line risked political and financial punishment. Today it was Hungary, tomorrow perhaps Poland, and one day, Italy. Germany's new ambitions' tensions escalated when Friedrich Merz took power in Berlin. Newly elected and full of ambition, he wanted to re-establish Germany as Europe's leading power. His coalition agreement sent a clear message: countries violating EU values would face tougher sanctions, including the suspension of voting rights and funding. Officially, these measures targeted Hungary, but Meloni saw the subtext. To her, Merz's plan aimed to transform Europe into a system of rigid discipline, one where Brussels would sit in judgment over sovereign governments. It was, in her eyes, a quiet erosion of national independence. The White House Summit. The White House meeting came under unusual circumstances. Following a surprise encounter between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin in Alaska, European leaders felt sidelined. In a rush to assert their relevance in Ukraine negotiations, they convened in Washington. For Merz, it was the perfect stage to present himself as the voice of a reasonable Europe. But when he spoke, his remarks turned into a lecture, a lengthy dissertation on ceasefire terms, shared values, and transatlantic unity. Meloni's patience ran out. Cameras captured the moment she rolled her eyes and tightened her jaw, a fleeting but telling gesture. Her glance toward Trump hinted at mutual understanding. Both recognized when rhetoric masked reality. Later, a hot microphone reportedly caught Meloni praising Trump's more direct, results-driven approach, a stark contrast to Merz's self-important tone. More than a moment of frustration. That scene wasn't just irritation, it was the culmination of deeper disillusionment. Meloni had tried to play by the European rules, only to find that those rules were written to make true independence impossible. Germany kept pushing for stricter control mechanisms, while Brussels created new financial tools to pressure defiant governments into compliance. The migration crisis made this most evident. Italy, positioned on the front line of the Mediterranean route, bore the brunt of incoming migrants. The island of Lampedusa became a symbol of a system collapsing under its own bureaucracy. While Italy struggled, Berlin and Paris preached solidarity, but offered little real help. When Meloni tightened border controls and struck new deals with North African countries, Brussels responded with moral criticism about human rights. To her, it was blatant hypocrisy. Germany, which had once invited over 1 million migrants, now chastised others for doing what it would no longer do. France spoke of solidarity while turning back migrants at its own border. Economic inequality. Across Europe, the same imbalance appeared in economics. The EU's ambitious Green Deal hit small and medium-sized businesses in southern Europe hardest. While Germany's auto industry received exemptions and France protected its nuclear sector, Italy faced the full weight of the new regulations. To Meloni, it was clear Europe's rules were written by the powerful, for the powerful. Orban's example, both warning and inspiration. In the background, Meloni watched Viktor Orban closely. Despite years of sanctions and criticism, he remained in power. Brussels labeled him an autocrat. Hungarians saw him as a defender of national interests. His resilience made him a symbol, not for destroying Europe, but for reshaping it into a union of sovereign nations rather than a federal superstate. Meloni realized that compromise with Brussels rarely paid off. Those who obeyed lost credibility at home. Those who resisted, paradoxically, grew stronger domestically. Europe's identity crisis. The Washington summit drove home a painful truth. Today's EU isn't built for diversity, it's built for conformity. Friedrich Merz embodied the old European mindset, convinced that leadership meant lecturing others rather than adapting to change. But that post-war logic no longer fit a world defined by shifting power and pragmatism. While the US, Russia, and China acted strategically, Europe drowned in moral debates. Brussels spoke of values, but lost influence. Meloni understood that Europe's problem wasn't a lack of principles. It was the inability to turn them into results. Change or irrelevance. The EU's structural weaknesses are now impossible to ignore. The energy crisis exposed the folly of Germany's dependence on Russian gas. The migration crisis revealed the failure of open border policies. Economic stagnation showed that endless regulations can't create growth. At the same time, politics across the continent are shifting. Marine Le Pen in France, Austria's Freedom Party, Germany's AfD, all gaining strength. Their message resonates. Put national interests first. People want protection from uncontrolled migration, fair competition, and less interference from unelected officials in Brussels. Two visions for Europe's future. Friedrich Merz represents one vision: more control, more punishment, tighter centralization. Giorgia Meloni represents another: cooperation among sovereign nations instead of a centralized superstate. But her vision faces resistance. The EU's institutions are designed to enforce uniformity, not diversity. Anyone challenging that structure risks isolation. Still, Meloni believes Europe's future depends on true reform. Not dissolution, but renewal. A Europe based on partnership, not paternalism. A symbolic moment. Her famous eye roll in Washington was more than a gesture. It was a symbol. It marked the moment when a generation of leaders began to realize that the old system had reached its limits. Meloni's visible frustration captured a quiet rebellion against an order that promises stability but produces stagnation. Europe stands at a crossroads in 2025. Either it finds a new balance between unity and sovereignty, or it risks alienating itself from its own citizens. Meloni's stance isn't anti-European. It's a challenge to Europe's complacency. The old continent has always evolved through crisis. One day, historians may look back at that fleeting moment in the White House, when Giorgia Meloni's exasperation became the metaphor for a new European reality.